There was this businessman. He went on a business trip to San Francisco. When he got to San Francisco, he said to himself, I got to try one of these seafood restaurants. I hear they're pretty good. So he went to a seafood restaurant, and the place was packed with customers. He was told it'd be about a 30-minute wait. When he heard that, he got angry and upset and outraged. He kept yelling out, how much longer, how much longer, how much longer? He was so angry, he even pushed a few people out of line. Finally, when his name was called because the seat was open, he walked up to the waiter and he said to the waiter, do you people serve crabs here? And the waiter said, yes, have a seat. You see, in life, every word we speak, every move we make, we give a glimpse, a portrait, a picture of who we are to other people. And that's really the key point of today's gospel reading. The gospel is coming out of the 16th chapter of Matthew, verses 13 to 20 inclusive. Now, in this gospel reading, the heavy emphasis is on the idea of perception. Jesus was concerned how he was being viewed. You know, Jesus wanted his church to grow. He realized if he was being perceived favorably, his church would grow. If he wasn't being perceived favorably, his church probably would not grow. Therefore, Jesus had to find out, and he had to ask one very important question of evaluation. Let's take a look at verse 13, the question that Jesus asked his disciples, 16th chapter of Matthew. Jesus went into the region of Caesarea Philippi, and he asked his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? Now, he asked his disciples this question because these in the mission field, they were out there in the territory. They're hearing, they're learning about what people are saying about Jesus. So Jesus says to the disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? What are you hearing? Now, Jesus realized, hopefully they're saying good things. But if they're not saying good things about me, I can change now rather than experience failure later. Find out what people are saying about me. Now we're going to find out in verse 14 the answer to this incredible question of evaluation. Let's take a look at verse 14, 16th chapter of Matthew. Now they replied, that's the disciples replied, well, some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, still other Jeremiah or one of the prophets. What they're saying to Jesus is this: Jesus, the people aren't exactly too sure who you are. They haven't pinned it down. But they know this much, that you belong to a group of admirable men, that you're an honorable man. You might be John the Baptist, the precursor of Christ. You might be Elijah, one of the great Old Testament prophets. You might be Jeremiah, another one of the great Old Testament prophets, or you're just one of the prophets. They're not sure who you are, but they know you're a good, honorable man. And Jesus had to be glad about that answer, but he wasn't satisfied up to that point. Jesus had asked one more question. He was relieved to know that the people out there in the mission fields thought he belonged to a group of admirable men. But I have to find out what my disciples, my close collaborators, what these men who are doing all this work for me, what do they think about me? So let's find out what he does in verse 15. Again, 16th chapter of Matthew. Now he said to them, that's his disciples, but who do you say that I am? I got to find out what my disciples say about me. And Simon Peter said in reply, Simon Peter took the lead on this. That's why he was a leader. Simon Peter answered first. He said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. You see, Simon Peter's understanding would equal his undertaking. Simon Peter realized, Jesus, everything I know about you, I don't get from hearsay. I get from watching you perform. I've heard your words. I've seen your actions. I know that you're the Son of God. I know that you are the Christ. Now, everything I said up to this point, I've said for one reason, because the challenge for all of us, every so often, it's good to sit back and assess and evaluate yourself. How are you living? What do people say about you in your town? What did they think about you? If you were to walk up and to say to someone in your circle, among your family, among your friends, who do people say that I am? How am I being viewed in this town? What would their answer be? You know, you might ask someone that question. You might walk up to someone today and say, who do people say that I am? And the answer given, some people say you're kind. That's because you're kind. If you ask someone that question about yourself, who do people say that I am? They might say that you're generous. It's because you're generous. If you walk up to someone and ask a question, who do people say that I am? You might get, well, a lot of people say you're a whiner. It's because you're a whiner. If you ask someone that question, who do people say that I am? Some people might say you're a complainer. It's because you're a complainer. That's all they ever hear you say. You see, what happens is this. Most people believe they have license to say things about other people. How often in the course of a day do you do that? You talk about this one, you say something about that one, you have an opinion about that one, you believe you have the right to have those opinions. It's a free country, I guess. But if you have a right and a license to say things about other people, guess what? They have license to say things about you. What are they saying? Think about it. Now, you might not have the courage to ask someone that question, but ask yourself that question. Just think about how you act and what you do, what you say. If you were just to spend some time today asking a question, if I were to ask someone, who do people say that I am, what would be their answer? Who would you ask? Well, I probably don't want to ask someone who doesn't like me. I already think I know that answer. You might say, oh, I know, I'll ask my mom. Moms always give a good answer. You know what's absolutely amazing is this. I've always enjoyed this. John Wilkes Booth, the fellow who assassinated President Lincoln. Now, John Wilkes Booth actually came from a very wealthy family. He was not a loner. So he doesn't fit that stereotype. He came from a wealthy family. He was a Shakespearean actor. So were his parents. Well-respected actors. He had performed many, many times for theater where he actually assassinates President Lincoln. Historians say this. They say on April the 14th, 1865, the day he entered Ford Theater to walk up to the balcony to assassinate President Lincoln with one bullet. On that very day, his mom was at a card party in Washington, D.C. with the social elite of Washington, D.C. She was a very wealthy woman. And most historians believe at the very time he pulled the trigger, his mom at that card party was bragging about her son, John Wilkes. So you won't want to ask your mom. Mom's always got something good to say about you. But if you were to ask someone in your neighborhood, someone that you might know well, but you're suspicious of what they might say about you, what would be their answer? Jesus had the courage. He needed to have the courage. He wants to build up his church. He asked this incredible question. Most people will not have the guts to ask this question or have the guts to stand around and listen to the answer and to accept the answer. Unfortunately for Jesus, asking the question, accepting the answer was easy because the answer was solid and good. But if you were to ask someone that question, what would be their answer? What do people think about you in this town? How are you being viewed? It's based upon your words and your actions, what you laugh at. All that makes a determination of who people assess you to be. So try that. If you don't have the courage to ask someone that question to find out what their answer is, just sit back sometime today and have a time of self-evaluation, reflection. Ask yourself the question, if I did ask someone, who do people say that I am, what would their answer be? And if I did have the courage to ask someone, who do people say that I am, what answer would I receive? All you know is this. If the answer you get is an answer that is admirable, then you don't need to change. Just keep doing what you're doing. But if the answer you receive is an answer that would embarrass you, and embarrass your family, probably does already, then you have to say to yourself, I need to change my way of doing things. I need to change my words, my gestures, and that which I laugh at. Who do people say that you are?